If you were to ask me 6 months ago what my favorite movie was, I don't think I would have been able to tell you. I've always struggled with narrowing it down to just one. I could never answer that question. Even when I was dating, the dumb get to know you questions you go through whenever you're meeting somebody, and what's your favorite movie, your favorite band, your favorite color, all that stuff. I've never been able to just narrow it down to just one. I've always had like a top 20. But up until recently, I've been spending a lot of time indoors and catching up on some different movies I liked. And there's one in particular that my wife and I saw a while ago, many years ago, that we both like fell in love with. And it's one of those things where like you sit down and you enjoy it, you talk about it for like a week and a half, 2 weeks, and then it's done. Well, I came across that movie again like a month ago, and I rewatched it, and I remember really enjoying it whenever I saw it the first time. But I've decided that this is actually like probably my absolute favorite movie. And it's not anything like spectacular. It's a great movie, but it's more so like just the depth of the story and the things that you can pull out of it, and really relatable to me. And anyway, I found it really inspiring. So the movie I'm talking about is The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, and I don't know if you guys have seen that before. Probably not. It wasn't super popular when it came out. Did like mediocre in the box office, but it was one of those like Sundance Film Festival movies that was successful at the festival, and then they released it to the theater. But anyway, it's basically the story of a guy named Walter Mitty who is a negative assets manager for Life magazine, and he pretty much brings in all of the negative images from the photographers and processes them for cover photos and content in the magazines. But this particular movie takes place right around the time where Life magazine's making a transition from print to online, and so they're coming in and changing things up and kind of shaking up the company a little bit. And so he gets this photo from a photographer that he's been working with for many years, and the guy that sends them the picture is developed kind of a close relationship with him, though they've never met. But he's an adventurer photographer, goes all over the world snapping all these pictures, and so he hears that they're changing things up, and he sends him this one particular photo in a roll called The Quintessence of Life, and wanted him to use that for the last cover. And so when he gets the roll, the image isn't in it, and so he goes through this process of trying to track down the photographer to find out where it is and all that kind of stuff. But in the process, you learn a lot about his character, and he's kind of this timid, like reserved guy, kind of quiet, not super outgoing, and he does these. He has these like daydream lapses throughout the movie where he's in a moment and then he just kind of zones out and starts imagining it going a different way, and kind of snaps back, and he's just been blank-faced. And anyway, it just adds a little bit of comedy to the movie because of that, and it's it's a little goofy sometimes. But anyway, the story really, the part that really drives me bringing this up, and the reason why I love the movie so much, is because it takes a character that's really entrenched in his way of life and just kind of going through what he knows to do, but not super fulfilled, and it puts him in a position to where he's forced to take a leap and step outside of his comfort zone, and whether it being with a love interest or just the fact that, he's never really traveled much, and so he takes the opportunity to go chase this guy down around the world and just experiences some amazing things, and really kind of develops into a well-rounded person and just someone who's fulfilled. And so anyway, there's just a lot of really cool things in that movie that I relate to, and I think it's a really neat story that develops, and the characters are good, how they interact and everything. But the motto of Life magazine in that movie is similar to the original motto, but I've recently found out that it's not actually the whole thing. But the kind of the driving message and the motivating message that he uses throughout this is to see the world, things dangerous to come to see behind walls, to draw closer, to find each other, and to feel. That is the purpose of life. And I know that's not the true purpose of life, but I definitely really like that quote, and I find it kind of inspiring and motivating. And so anyway, that's just kind of trickled throughout this story. And the female character in this movie is Kristen Wiig, and so they kind of come together. He's got an interest in her, and they come together because she's I don't know what her actual position is, but she's in relation to like accounts payable type stuff. So he uses that end to start talking to her to try to help track down this photographer, and so she jumps on and wants to kind of help investigate where he's at and trying to find him and stuff. So anyway, that's how they get together in the movie and work together. But her character is important too, because he's got an interest in her, like an attraction to her. But the relationship that they develop, she motivates him in kind of a moment of weakness, and I can relate to that. I've got my wife that does that for me, and so there's just a lot of different things in that movie that are really cool. So I would highly recommend it. I don't think I gave too much of it away to where it's worth going to watch if you have an interest in it. But the reason why I brought that up is because I love that movie so much because of the different nuggets that are inside of it, and it's really relevant, all the time. And for me specifically, I relate to the character because I felt that way at some point in my life. I felt like, I wanted something more, but I didn't quite have the courage to do it, or I was just too distracted. And it took an event, to kind of push me to that point, to jump and, go after an adventure. And so I think that's really cool. And so when I was thinking about how I wanted to approach this and how I wanted to bring this up and make it relevant to what I'm talking about, I got to thinking about the trail name thing. And I took that kind of lightly at the very beginning. Kind of the way it was introduced to me was kind of like as a joke. It's just something fun that people do to come up with a goofy name, like a Xbox live name or something like that, just an avatar you use to have fun with it. And for some people that's what it is, but for others, that's a new identity. Whenever they come up with a trail name, a lot of times there's a deeper meaning. I've listened to a lot of different podcasts, and I've heard some different interviews from hikers that have done a through hike or have done multiple hikes, and just listening to how they decided on their names that they use, it really gave me a whole different perspective. And I think it's awesome because you can make it fit your personality or the personality that you want to develop. It's kind of, for some people, they hit a point in their life and a through hike is like their last ditch effort to, be saved, to grab onto something, try to figure out what's going on in their life and direction and all that kind of stuff. And so it has a much deeper meaning to it. And so anyway, got to thinking about all that, and I decided that I'm going to start using the name Mitty for my trail name. And I like it because I love the movie, I love the character. I think that I relate a lot to him and his story. And it's got my letters, the letters of my name mixed up in it. So, and it's just, I think it's cool. So anyway, there's a couple different things in that movie that I wanted to use to kind of tie in some topics here today. So many of you have noticed that I've been a little bit AWOL on social media and from putting out podcasts, and I want to take a minute to address that and just kind of explain. First of all, I want to say I'm sorry, because I know that I've kind of given some empty promises on the tail ends of these posts or the last couple episodes, and my intentions were to keep this thing rolling throughout the pandemic and just kind of go as normal as possible, but that just didn't happen. And part of it has to do with the change in my schedule. I was blessed to be deemed an essential employee, and been able to continue working through all this, which has been wonderful. I know that a lot of people have been affected in a more negative light, and my heart goes out to you guys. And I can't imagine the stress and the struggle that's going on with all that. But my schedule changed a little bit. I had to work 7 days on, 7 days off, and then rotate 7 nights on, 7 nights off. And on paper that sounds awesome, but it's pretty tough schedule to work 12-hour shifts 7 days in a row. But that really wasn't so much the reason. It was more so just like a lot of extra pressure and stress just from being like the only one in the management team on site. So anyway, I don't want to spend too much time talking on that, because it's a blessing and I could take it negatively, but I don't want to do that. So I'm just explaining that was part of the reason why I didn't continue to work this through on a regular basis. And to be honest, I was tired and just burnt out. But you take all that stuff and you come home, and the outlet that I had to blow off my steam and to relax had been taken away from me. I was mad. I was mad and I was frustrated because I didn't understand why, in the midst of all this stuff, we're going to shut down outside. It just didn't make sense to me. I understand trying to slow the spread and all that stuff, but I mean, come on, take a look around. There's nobody out here, and this was shut down. This was taken away. So I was a little frustrated. I was a little angry from that regard, and I felt like I was put in a position where I didn't have a way to blow off steam. And then I'm also wanting to spend that time that I have off. I'm away from my family for an entire week. I want to have that time to spend with them. And so anyway, I just didn't think it was appropriate to try to continue to push out content that wasn't going to be genuine anyway. I mean, anyone who's followed me for any period of time knows that I'm trying to be motivational. I'm trying to be encouraging and positive. And I don't want to sit here and crank out stuff that I'm not doing myself, and to put out episodes that I didn't have anything to talk about, honestly. And so I'm sorry if folks that have been following me for a while are disappointed, because I I do want to be an encouragement. I do want to be motivating for people who are struggling, and there's a lot of junk going on right now. I mean, people getting stuck inside for months at a time, losing their jobs, running out of money, running out of savings. You know, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of tension. You know, there's different ways to cope with all that, and some people are turning to, you know, substance abuse, alcohol abuse, depression, suicide. All that stuff's on the rise, and that's not a very happy thing, you know. And so anyway, I wanted to just take a minute and explain kind of how I've been able to manage through this. And it hasn't been perfect at all, like far from it. I have not had my junk together for the last 3 months. I'll be honest, transparent about that. But I do have my faith, and faith that if this here doesn't get all back to normal, doesn't go back to the way things we were used to, the way things were when we were used to them, and if you know, things continue to decline and get even more crazy, you know, I have faith that there's something after this for me, and that's important to me, and that's really been the only thing that's been able to kind of keep me sane throughout all this. So I definitely understand that, you know, some others that may not have that same faith and that same relationship, you know, with the Lord, that things have been really crazy and pretty dark right now. So hang in there, and you know, if you're searching for something greater, then it's out there, but you're not going to find it here on this planet. But anyway, I wanted to also just take a minute to talk about the back to the connection of the Walter Mitty thing. I mean, there's a line in that movie that I find pretty incredible. You know, there's the photographer, when he finally meets up with him, he's up in the Himalayas trying to get a picture of a snow leopard, the ghost cat, they call it. And so he's sitting there on the side of a mountain under a blanket with a big old telescoping lens and just hanging out. Walter walks up on him and they start talking, and you know, he says that beautiful things don't ask for attention. You know, when they're developing their dialogue and they get to that point, we're talking about the cat. You know, it's you have to find those things. You have to seek them out. You don't. They don't just kind of happen, you know, or they don't present themselves in a way that is super obvious sometimes. And so, trying to find the silver lining in all of this stuff. You know, I talked in the last episode with my dad about taking advantage of this opportunity with your kids and with your family, and it's a forced blessing kind of thing. And I've made some great memories with my kids in the last 3 months. You know, it's been the world's been burning down around us, but I mean, in our little cocoon, in our little shell, it's been pretty nice, and we've made some really, really great memories together. And so I'm very thankful for that. But also, you know, and as that scene develops, he sees the leopard and shows Walter, and they're looking at it through the lens, and he sits back, and Walter asks him, he's like, "Aren't you going to take your picture?" And he just says, "No." He says, "Sometimes you just have to, you see something, and it's so amazing that you find that moment that you just want to stay in it and not be distracted by, you know, snapping a picture or having to get the shot just right." And I think that's beautiful, man. I find that so applicable right now in this day and age of technology, of, you know, getting it for the gram, you know, trying to get to these beautiful spots to capture it in just a way that it'll get so many likes and, you know, get boosted, and somebody will feature it and all that. I mean, that's cool. That stuff happens. It's all part of the social media phenomenon. But I mean, we get so lost. We get so lost in what this is about, you know. And so going back to what I was saying, like, I've been struggling so much with whether or not it's even appropriate to be putting stuff out right now, because for me it's like, what is that going to do? You know, if I'm out here cranking out pictures of all these beautiful spots that no one can go visit right now, is that just going to add insult to injury, or is that going to help? You know, like, I don't know. So you can understand why I haven't been showing much of a presence. But I do have to tell you that right here, right now, I'm taking my Mitty moment, and I'm jumping out here on a ledge, and I'm going for it, because I've been wanting to do this podcast for a while now. I've been wanting to make it great. I've been wanting to really develop something that is special and relatable, and I had a plan, and plans change, but I've said it before, you know, you need to adapt, and you need to be able to you know, tweak it and keep going, keep pushing forward. Sometimes you do stall out, and I definitely felt like I've done that from a standpoint of like being consistent as far as the stuff I'm putting out. But I haven't backtracked at all in the mission and in my motivation at all. I mean, it's, if anything, I've got more clarity now. But watching what's going on in the world around me, and understanding that you know, people need something right now. They need positive message. They need encouragement. They need something that's gonna push them in the right direction. I'm jumping for it, man. I don't normally talk about politics or social issues at all, and I have made a very conscious effort to keep this show neutral. Let me back up. I do talk a lot about politics and social issues off camera, but in the show specifically, I've wanted to remain neutral, because those topics infiltrate every single aspect of our lives all the time, and to a point where you can't even have like a civil conversation with people, you know, if any of those topics come up. Most people can't handle, you know, active debate or, you know, differing views. It gets nasty. And so I've avoided those topics on here specifically, because what this show's about is about getting out, getting away, unplugging, turning that crap off, and connecting with the world around you and experiences and people, and learning from each other. And I think that it's important that we keep that stuff separated sometimes. But having said all that, I hate what I'm seeing right now everywhere. There's so much fear, there's so much division, there's so much anger flying everywhere, and we can't keep going on like this. You know, I talked a little bit about my faith a few minutes ago, and that's a huge part of my core. I mean, it's the man I am today is developed by the faith that I found, you know, 17 years ago. And that's not how this was intended. You know, we're supposed to love each other unconditionally, and that's a key word right there, unconditionally. And skin color, political view, you know, race, you know, all of that stuff puts conditions on things. And, you know, what you believe, all that kind of stuff, it puts conditions on how you treat someone. And it shouldn't be that way at all, you know. And it goes both ways. I'm not going to sit here and say that one side is right, one side's wrong, because we're both at fault. And it's depressing, because we've really lost sight of that, and people are so in the weeds right now. And so I'm going to encourage everybody to just take a step back, try to zoom out and see the big picture, and kind of understand that, right now, more than ever, we need to try to put differences aside and just show each other love and compassion and kindness. And that's the only way we're going to be able to get past these hard things. Conflict is never easy. It's really uncomfortable, and there's a lot of folks who just can't get past certain things. And they can't see the big picture, and I understand that because I've been there too. I've been fogged. I've been blinded. I've been distracted, or been so laser focused, down into one specific area that I can't see the big picture. It takes somebody reaching down and grabbing me, pulling me up, shaking me, and saying, get your junk together, man. And most times that's my wife. And so sometimes it's others, but most times it's her. And so going back to the Walter Mitty tie-in here, that character, that female character that motivates Mitty to take that jump and to do something he's super uncomfortable with, is just there with a word of encouragement and a little nudge. And so for right now, right here, I'm trying to do that for everybody. I want to be that word of encouragement and that little nudge that we'll get through this. It's painful. It's terrifying. But I'm convinced in my heart of hearts that we will get through this, and it will be better, and we'll be closer, once we do. But it's going to take all of us reaching out and showing genuine kindness to one another, and love. And so I'm not interested in turning this into a political debate or a social issues debate, but if anybody has any thoughts or feelings that they want to share, then I'm here. But as things are beginning to open up, things are starting to kind of go back to a semi-normal lifestyle, just keep that in mind. We're all struggling with something, and we're all experiencing some sort of quote unquote injustice. But let me tell you something, the world's not fair. It's not supposed to be fair. I mean, there's things that just suck sometimes. But all we can do is control ourselves and our situations and try to be an outward influence to affect people in a positive way, and be good and kind and treat others the way we want to be treated. Golden rule. So, all right, I'm done with the soapbox thing. And as far as all this COVID stuff goes and the quarantine, I'm done. I mean, personally, I'm moving forward. I'm ready to get back to normal. I'll respect people's views and their their concerns, but as for me, I'm getting back on it, because this is frustrating. So anyway, look forward to putting out some new content. I got an awesome new camera. You guys are getting to see some of the footage if you're watching the YouTube channel, and I'm excited to test out some different stuff with that. Trying to line up some guests that we had on schedule before. I'm picking that schedule right back up, and I'll get back on it. Really looking forward to doing that, and looking to the future for putting out some fresh things, and meeting some new folks, and working through all of the craziness to get back to a high point. And so anyway, hope everybody's out there staying safe. Reach out, say what's up, send me a message, and anything that you would like to hear or want to see on the show, let me know. And thanks again to everybody who hasn't unfollowed me. I know it's been pretty crazy. A lot of people have been just all over the place. So I appreciate the patience and folks that have been tuning into the show and want to continue to. And I hope that we can move up and get up and just go and take this thing forward. I'm ready to take the torch down the path. So thanks for tuning in, guys. I'm Tim Garland. This is Trail Connection Podcast, and I'll catch you next time.